Hello, I'm Max Raven.
And I'm Cassandra Raven. Together we have over 30 years experience in the occult, witchcraft and magic.
We share insights, knowledge, advice and lifestyle tips to make your magic go further and add potency to your work.
In today's video we answer your questions about spirits.
Okay, so first question.
So the first question comes from Rhiannon Thomas. Actually, the first few questions come from Rhiannon Thomas. Thank you so much for sending us your questions, guys. We love it when you interact with us, and we love it when you ask us questions, because it gives us something to talk about, and it's always good. We love that. So Rhiannon says, and I'm going to ask this question of you first.
Oh God.
When you see spirits, how do they look?
This can really vary from spirit to spirit, and depending on how they come across. So I'll say when I first started seeing them, it was more like a heat haze on a hot day. So you'd get a rough sort of approximation of where they are in the room, and you'll get sort of the rippling,
like the Invisible Man.
Yeah, a bit like the Invisible Man, or sometimes it's like TV static. I still get that to a degree, but that's can be around the time when an energy is trying to show itself, or it's the beginning signs of something trying to manifest, and it might be that's sort of the little, I don't know, spidey sense, the little ping that goes off, and you go, oh, there's something over there, and then you might tune in more, and then it comes across more strongly, or you'll get a much clearer image in your mind's eye. Most of the ones I've seen will be a very clear depiction in the mind's eye. It'll be sort of maybe a slightly more fuzzy appearance in visual range than like sort of physical manifestation, if that makes sense. But with details being filled out by the mind's eye.
Right, okay, so you're seeing it, so you're talking about seeing it in the mind's eye rather than there goes a grey lady kind of.
It can vary. I mean, I have had experiences where it's been as real can be, and the first full body apparition I saw was actually on a ghost hunt we did together. I think it was Oak Hall or something, Oak House, something like that.
Oak House, West Bromwich.
Yes, that one. It was at the end of the event, and I think someone had left a K2 upstairs, so I had to run up and.
You had to go back into the haunted building. All on your own after we'd finished a full investigation of, you know, a good 8 hours of riling up the spirits and getting the activity going and everything, and we were packing up and realised we'd left a K2 in there.
We'd actually had some good poltergeist activity that night as well, so it was a bit of a. It kind of felt
Off
like
you
that.
Go, Max.
First scene of a horror movie. It's like we'll send that idiot in, get rid of him first. But yeah, so came to the top of the stairs where the last vigil was held, and as clear as day, I thought we had one of the guests still with us, and the stairs were a bit wonky and all the lights were off, so I was head down with the torch going, and then looked up to try and find the thing, and inches from my face was
There she was.
There she was, a lady in a blue and white dress, looking rather grumpy that she thought she'd got rid of us all, and then I turned back up. But yeah, it varies. But,
okay, so it can vary is the short answer to
the short
question.
Answer,
so Rhiannon's put a second part to the question. Are they... I've written it down in my book, that's why I'm looking down. Are they solid, and are they wandering around waiting to be spoken to? So... The way that I see them is very similar to the way that you see them. So sometimes it can be in the mind's eye. So sometimes if I'm in a building, I can see a spirit that's in a room 2 floors up and 3 rooms to the right. You know, it's like I don't have to be in that room to be able to see that spirit. I'm kind of taken into that room and shown what's there in my mind's eye. So in a very similar way, I can see a spirit that's standing behind me. So I can be, you know, facing forward, talking to the people in front of me, yet very aware of the spirit that's standing behind me and what it looks like or what it's doing, that sort of thing, which isn't just a sense, it's a visual, but it's a mind visual, so it's in the mind's eye. And I think the hardest thing for people is trusting that.
Yeah. Do you find a good way to describe it for me is like when you look in your car mirrors, like you're sort of looking behind you, but it's in like a car mirror, so it's a reflection of it. So it's you.
Yeah.
You're still aware of everything that's in front of you, but you've got one of your eyes on the rear view mirror.
I guess
if that
so,
makes sense.
Like a lizard.
Yeah.
No, what's it?
The chameleon.
Chameleon.
Technically a lizard, but yeah.
The chameleon of the spirits. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. For me, it's almost like I don't know. When you're thinking something visual, yeah, you're still aware of what's around you. It's just two things going on at the same time in your mind. And also, I see them physically as well. So it is, you've been in the car with me. Unfortunately, when I've thrown the brakes on in the car because the spirit has run in front of the car, and I've kind of gone, oh my god, and realised 2 seconds later that it's a spirit, and it's
always when I'm nodding off on a long road trip. It's
sorry, you've seen them too, though. We've both seen the same things. Which
I'm
a question that some people ask us is, do you both see the same things? And largely, yes, we do. Not all the time, but yeah, we do. So anyway, I digress. Are they solid, and are they wandering around waiting to be spoken to? Some of them are waiting to be spoken to. Some of them aren't. So in some cases, they are just kind of and it's not like they're just like sat there for decades on end, twiddling their thumbs and just really bored and waiting. It's like they'll drift in and out of planes of existence. So they'll be maybe in a healing phase on the spirit planes, and then they'll come back to the place where they need to be in spirit, and then they'll go back and forth. So they're not always present necessarily where they're going to be, which is why when you do a ghost hunt somewhere, you don't always communicate with the same spirits, because they're not always there all the time. But some of them will sense that you're going to be somewhere, or they'll sense that there's going to be an attempt at communication, and that brings them forward. It's almost they can feel it. And I notice this a lot with doing events and things like that, is the spirits will sometimes approach even when I'm at home before I go somewhere to do an event or tell people what's there. It's almost as if they're aware, and they kind of say, hey, we're here, we are going to make ourselves known tonight. And I just kind of say, okay, don't tell me anything, I don't want to know, wait until I get there. No spoilers. Yeah, so are they wandering around waiting to be spoken to? In some cases. In other cases, they're just getting on with their progress, their learning, their progression through their own spiritual path that they have to take on the other side before they reincarnate again. Rhiannon also says, thank you so much for your marvellous questions. You mentioned on one of the lives that one of them was crawling. Is there a reason for this? I'm not sure which live you're referring to on that one. There are lots of locations that come to mind where spirits crawl, and sometimes it's because they're not necessarily an entirely human spirit. They may be a hybrid spirit, part one creature, part another. Don't really like the word creature, but I couldn't think of another word.
Well, it's sort of an animalistic
energy.
Animalistic consciousness.
Yeah.
Where it's got elements of human consciousness, but also with animalistic, where it's say a high intense moment of energy created from human consciousness will say linger, and it will gather its own energy like a rolling ball. It will gather momentum, and it will pick up energy from the local area, and it might pick up on certain energies from animals. So particularly in a location where there's wildlife. So here we have lots of bats, or in other locations there might be spiders, for instance. So the energy of the spirit then can take on, or they see those animals and say, okay, that's how they're moving around, so that's how I'm going to move around, and they almost create that image so that they can then use that as a way to move around to get from A to B. So that might be why the spirit was crawling. It might have been a what I call a hybrid, or it could have been a person crawling for some reason. I don't know. I honestly can't remember what the location was or what the story was behind it. So I have a feeling it may very well have been the sort of spider-like energy, a Drakelow.
I don't think there's a Drakelow online. I don't think there's a live
Well, not ad director. I'm sure we've discussed it before, but there was someone has actually got some really fantastic Connect footage of that being picked up as well.
Yeah, maybe it's that.
So I think it was around that time. That might be why we were discussing it.
Okay. So I hope that helps, Rhiannon. I hope that answers those questions for you. The next questions that we have are from Lisa. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sending your questions in. And Lisa says, "Why don't spirits move on?" That's her first question.
For me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not? Why don't spirits move on?
Well, it can vary. Like you say, that people will have a healing process, and shall we say, almost. I don't want to use the phrase grieving, but. You might have something like that, as in with people that are on this plane. When someone passes, there's a connection between them, depending on how strong. It might be a place that you're not able to visit anymore, for example, or a family member that's passed. There's still that. So they're grieving or wanting. Yeah, there's that energetic connection between one thing to another, and. Like with some people that may have to go through therapy to come to terms to understand what's happened, what they've gone through. I mean, death's pretty big. It's a pretty big event. It's a pretty big deal. Yeah. It's not quite like a birthday or a something like that. It's quite big. So some people it can be a shock to the system. A shock to the system. So it may be a case where they're moving around places that they know very well, places that may have points of comfort, or like the sort of therapy idea, there may be places where they've had a really traumatic event or something that they may not have dealt with properly in life. Or some people ask sometimes, does this spirit know that they're dead? Which is a good question. I mean, I haven't come across one that wasn't aware that they died. Yeah, the same. And I think it's kind of like they know on some level. Yeah. Like they will have an inkling. As you say, it's a big event. Yeah. And there is some kind of there is that sort of it is a shock to the spiritual system and the physical system. Yeah. So I've had spirits that don't really want to acknowledge the fact that they've passed, and they would really rather just I know it sounds funny. They'd really rather just carry on. They're still full of life and full of energy and full of all the character that they would be full of in life, and they are still going about their business as they would. So you do get them. So Lisa also asks, how do dark energies come to be? How do they grow? How do they interact with humans? This is a really, really big question. Dark energies, or any negative kind of energy, they manifest in lots of different ways. So there is the belief that God created everything, including the negative, so the good and the bad. There's also the theory that negative energies are created by negative thoughts, actions, negative speech. So in other words, we are creating negative energies all the time. Now, I'm more of the sort of belief system where I know that we're creating energy with our thoughts and with our actions. And a tiny thought from us has a massive, massive impact on the world. So that is really why you need to keep your thoughts really positive, keep your energy positive, just try to stay as nice and, full of light as you possibly can, because any darkness that you send out is going to affect someone. You're sending out something that's going to affect another person. And for me, that's just a really big no-no. I don't want. So I find it really interesting that there is this theory that everything we think and say and the way that we act really does form a manifestation. Definitely. So that could be where dark energies come to. That sort of rolls into. Lisa says. Should we say curses as well? Curses. So if you're saying someone's I don't like you, you can go and have diarrhea. Get for a week. Get on a boat. But there's a really good description in one of the Pratchett books where you have it's really embarrassing, I've forgotten his name, the head wizard, and every time he makes a Ridcully, thank you. Whenever he swears, it becomes this little creature that whizzes around his head. It's just like little various words that I can't say on YouTube. Become little creatures that keep on pestering it, which is a good way to picture it.
So she also asks, what is an attachment and why do they attach and what do they gain from it? I have a story about an attachment. Can I tell my story?
Go for it. Go for it.
So I don't often experience attachments because I'm really well protected all the time actually, but when I deal with spirits in particular, if I'm going to a location that I don't know very well or where I know there are negative energies, I protect myself really well. One night in particular, bearing in mind I've been doing this for 10 years, there was one night where I didn't feel good. I was going through a difficult emotional time, something that was quite traumatic emotionally, and I knew that I didn't feel up to par before I went to work at this particular event, but I went anyway. It was at Alton Towers, which is still one of my favourite ever locations to go and talk to the spirits in the actual building at Alton Towers. If you're not from the UK, Alton Towers is a theme park in the UK, so there's lots of roller coasters and rides and things, but there is a building. Alton Towers itself is a building, and it's a Gothic, neo-Gothic
Gothic revival built by Pugin.
Mansion built by Pugin. So a fantastic building, a really amazing building, and lots of interesting energy there. And I'd been there before, and I was aware of the energies, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to do my best to look after myself. And I was there working, communicating with the spirits there, and I felt a particular male spirit who I was already aware of standing with me, and it's like he had icy cold hands, and he was putting his hands around my solar plexus inside my rib cage and just squeezing the inside of my rib cage, just everything that sits inside your ribs, everything was getting squeezed very slowly by these icy cold hands. And I didn't do anything about it. My mind was not in the right place. I wasn't mentally in the right place to deal with it, to protect myself properly. And I just let it happen. I carried on talking to the people that were there. I was talking about this energy and saying, oh, he looks like this and he's doing this and his name's this, and then, and there's another one over there and they're doing this, and just going on with the night as I normally would. Gradually through the night, his face was just getting closer and closer to my face until he ended up sort of here, and I could see his face in the sort of corner of my eye, and everywhere I turned his face was just there the whole time. And again I just thought, oh, I haven't got the strength to deal with this. And so he came home with me, stuck here in my aura, just stuck with his energy there. And I went home and I went to bed, and the next day I woke up and I just felt really, really down. I had a real paranormal hangover. I felt so down, so depressed, really just drained of energy. And Lisa's question, which is why do they attach and what do they gain from it? It's an exchange of energy. So he was feeding me energy, which was like a depressed feeling that was echoing my emotions that were already happening, and he was taking from me any energy that I had, like physical energy, so that he can then go on and continue with that energy. And it's an exchange that becomes a flow and then constantly happens. And the longer you leave it, the more you feel dependent on that energy flow, and the more the spirit becomes dependent on that energy flow. So it lasted for about 2 days, and on the third day I just said, look, I mustered up the strength and I just said, look, I can't deal with this anymore. I've had enough. You need to go away, go back to where you came from and get out of my house, get out of my energy. And I basically just sent him back, and he went without question and without a fight. So, it was easy to actually get rid of him. But the emotional and the kind of mindset wasn't there at first to get rid of it. And I think this is where people with depression or people who are going through a difficult time, they're so vulnerable because you don't have it in you to protect yourself in those times. You don't also have it.
Some sort of addictions, also parasitic.
She goes on to say, Lisa, are there spirits who are lost here, and do they need mediums to pass them into the light? In some cases, yes.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I'll just
Put it at that.
I'll just say that.
Not every spirit needs a medium to pass every spirit into the light.
No.
Some will be here for certain purposes. Some will look over family groups.
Yeah.
For example, you might have your great grandmother who may be waiting to reincarnate with various other members of the same family group.
We should probably explain the process though, because when you pass, there is a, she says pass them into the light. So, I believe, and from my experience, this is the way that I understand it, that you will see a white light, or, a tunnel and a white light, or something, or a doorway, or something where there's this really lovely bright white light, and this is why we say pass them into the light. We're sending them to the other plane of existence, over into the spirit worlds, beyond that threshold, through the white light, if you like. So usually that happens within the first couple of days after passing. So very often people get lots of activity, or they feel the energy of that person still around them immediately after passing. And in my experience, people tend to wait until their funeral is finished before they go to the light. But sometimes they can go to the light and then come back through in order to make their presence known, which is referred to as being in visitation. So coming back to visit, or being in visitation, is coming back from having passed through the light in the first place. So there's a little bit of confusion, I think, about, a spirit can have passed through the light and then come back again because there's unfinished business, because there are things they need to learn further, or as you say, they need to watch over their family, or they want to visit their family or whatever. And some people think, oh, they haven't passed, they haven't gone over. Well, actually they have. It's just that they've come back to visit. So there's a little bit of confusion there, I think. Those that don't go to the light or don't pass through the light first, as you say, is usually because there is some kind of unfinished business, or something that's distracting them so much that they haven't had that welcome. They haven't had that moment of welcome to the spirit side, time of healing, and then being able to come back. So they're missing that healing section. Yeah. So they do tend to be a bit more disturbed, or a bit more worrisome, or
emotionally unstable, maybe, or in a more panicked state. But we'll keep that as some do, not all don't, not all need it. It can be like slamming the door in the face of a guest if they're coming back to visit, but it really depends on the spirit, whether they are, should we say, destructive or negative, or in a state where it's not healthy.
I think it's still a case of, is that spirit willing? I don't think we should be pushing spirits around, really. I don't think we should be shoving them into the light if that's not what they're supposed to be doing, or not what they want to be, or what they want to experience. So I think that's where we both have a little bit of a... there's an uncomfortable kind of, I've seen mediums do things that I think cross the line of some things aren't okay, and you need to assess it. You need to talk to the spirit and find out what's going on, and sometimes it's just none of your damn business, and you just need to let it play out as it needs to play out. And I think that's where we come from, really.
I think the best way to put it as this is a consciousness, be it physical or otherwise. And if you're pushing it into something it doesn't want to do, you're taking away its agency, which is a big no-no.
Yeah.
And if it does reach out for help, and you're helping it, that can be a lovely moment, and you're bringing peace, and really, really, really nice. But if it's something that's dealing with a traumatic event, and it needs this time to come to terms with what's happened, and you're forcing it on, that can actually be more traumatic and not helpful. And it may be a case that spirit comes back in visitation, or you may get some sort of other negative energy take that place. But yes.
So those are our thoughts on those things. Guys, if you're liking the kinds of things that we're talking about and the subjects we delve into here, please subscribe and click the bell to give you notifications of when we upload more videos. And also visit our online store, ravenmysticshop.com, where you can find all kinds of things that we make and create in order to help you on your spiritual and witchcraft journey as well. We would love to see you there. We're also Raven Mystic on all social media, so come along to the social media platforms and interact with us there too. So
Thank you very much, guys.
All that's left is to thank you. Thank you for your interaction. Thank you for your questions. Keep sending them in. We love the questions. We love to get our brains around things and discuss things and help you guys out, hopefully, too, at the same time.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you again soon.